The left-wing organization known as ACORN is finding itself in some serious legal jeopardy today. The group itself, along with some of its members, now being named in criminal charges of voter registration fraud. These charges stem from investigations in Nevada and Pennsylvania, and they may not be the end. There are still open investigations into voter registration fraud in at least a half dozen other states. Joining me now is former ACORN employee Anita. Anita, good morning to you.
Good morning, Megan.
You've made headlines recently because you were with this group for several years, and you are a self-described liberal, but you have come out and said some things about ACORN that are not flattering to the group. Now they're trying to dismiss you as sort of disgruntled. But you can personally attest to the fact that this group has crossed the legal line in more than one case.
Exactly. ACORN actually goes after its own members. It uses its members because they are poor and marginalized communities in order to build their coffers. They use these voter registration programs to cause chaos at the offices and then to drive the people out to the polls by saying they're trying to take away your rights. The Republicans are trying to keep black people from voting. It's all a massive ruse. What they're really committing is funder fraud. These voter registration drives garner up to $28, sometimes $30 million a year.
Right, and that's how they get their money from the federal government, because they show them they can get people out to the polls and so on. But Anita, let me ask you this: in Pennsylvania in particular, now they've been charged not only with voter fraud, but the quota system is under attack, saying, listen, when the workers come in, you give them a set number that they have to have filled out by the end of the day. And that leads to fraud, because sometimes you can't get 20 people to sign up. And so, you know, Joe, the ACORN worker, sits there and he just fills in random Mickey Mouse and so on and so forth. Is there or is there not a quota system in place at ACORN?
There is definitely a quota system at ACORN. It's something that I testified about in October of last year, and it's something that has existed since at least the 2004 election cycle. ACORN has always urged its workers to get 20 cards, and their training manuals actually say if they don't get 20 cards, fire them before they go out on the next shift so they don't waste your money.
Now, Scott Levinson, who is the national spokesperson for ACORN, has come on this show before, and he and I had a contentious interview. Last week he was on Glenn Beck's program, and they had a very contentious interview. He says he has denied that the quota exists and has basically called people who level those accusations just hate mongers, saying that they don't get ACORN. Here he is. Our viewers remember this guy. So he's denied that the quota exists. That's just not true, Anita?
It's an outright lie. ACORN has been denying that they are throwing their employees under the bus by putting them out there and letting them get indicted, when they are actually creating a culture of corruption. There's been cases where they say that head organizers have watched these workers fill out these cards and turn them in. ACORN has always been aware of what's been going on. Management notes that I have actually seen say as long as they get 40%, that's fine.
What's their goal? What's the end game, Anita? What are they after?
Power. Not power for the communities, but power for the organization. They have planned for the 2008 election cycle for a while, and what they wanted to do is strategically place themselves to where they could lobby for things that would become favorable to ACORN, so they would be able to get stimulus money or money from the housing recovery.
Is there any question in your mind that this group is working solely to get Democrats elected? In other words, it's supposed to be nonpartisan. People forget that because ACORN is a nonprofit. But is there any question in your mind that this is a partisan entity?
Well, that's a common misconception, actually, because ACORN itself is a 501c4. It's a C4 organization. They are allowed to do certain aspects of political activity. Their affiliates like Project Vote, ACORN Institute are 501c3s. So they solicit the money from the C3s, and then ACORN uses it to run their partisan agendas, which is always Democrat. But what a lot of people don't realize when they attack them, that by saying they're nonpartisan, ACORN comes out and says, no, we're not. That's not what we are. So it's something that people must realize. They are a C4, and they use the other entities to funnel money into ACORN.
I understood. So it's sort of a web that they have going. Let me ask you before I let you go. I want to talk to you about the New York Times, because I know that there have been headlines about this, and you've talked about this. You say that the New York Times is actively working to cover up some of the bad press that's come out on ACORN.
That is true. I worked with a reporter, Stephanie Strom, for several months in 2008. There was a couple of stories that I felt that she watered down when they came out in publication in relation to the ACORN embezzlement scandal. There was also a story that showed that ACORN had gotten the donor list not only from the Obama campaign, but from the DNC, the Kerry campaign, and Clinton's campaign. They were operating as an unofficial arm of the Democratic Party, and the New York Times did not want the truth to come out. Stephanie Strom was on her way here to get evidence here in Washington, and her editors told her to stand down.
It wasn't the reporter, it was the entity itself, the newspaper, the New York Times.
Correct.
I got to go, but I want to ask you before I go, Anita, what should happen to ACORN in your view?
ACORN needs to be investigated, and almost everyone at the top level needs to be removed. The ACORN local offices do a lot of good work, but ACORN National has become corrupt and almost like a cancer on American society.
You know, I know that there were calls as recently as last week for some sort of investigation into this group, and those calls were rejected at the congressional level. There's a lot of power that group has among some lawmakers in particular. Anita, good for you for your courage for speaking out. We appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.